Well, greetings, everyone. Not exactly sure what happened there. A little technical difficulties getting on to the show. But we have a very special guest on tonight, Mr. Sean Harper. Uh, let me see. As well as some of our other panelists tonight. Not sure what's going on. Are we having Are we having technical difficulties? Yeah. Well, we are on live, and we're just waiting for. Let's see. Hmm, okay. Hmm. Uh, I think you're in the wrong. Hmm. Okay. Well, I see Mr. Scott is here. Mr. Scott got the right link. What's going on there, Mr. Scott? Been missing you.
Oh, yeah, no problem. I thought that maybe I was a little bit too toxic for the show, and maybe the toxicity was eliminating me from some of the programs. But I'm going to continue to be toxic, and things are getting good here in Twin Cities. It's finally warming up. James, I've been watching. I know this is sports, but I was watching the stuff about Buffalo. I was watching the things about voting rights, and it's like we just keep arguing about things that's already been settled. We keep arguing about things that it's already been done. So we go, as Billy Preston said, will it go round in circles? And that's
Yeah, you're showing our age there, Mr. Scott. um, I've been. I'm not sure how you got the right link and no one else did. Uh, let's see. There's Bill Carroll now. So people are starting to drift in one by one. Mr. Carroll, how are we doing this evening?
So far, so good. I hope everything's. Oh wait, it's over there. I hope everything's going well with you too.
Yes, fairly well. We're all on the show tonight. I'm hoping that our guest got the right link. Um, so, Bill, Mr. Scott was referring to an old song, "Will He Go Round in Circles," talking about Buffalo. Once again, the wheel turns. But I thought we'd have a moment of silence for the victims, as well as for the family of the shooter. Um, so, without much ado, let's just hang our heads in silence for a moment. Yeah, I'm trying. I guess we're having some technical difficulties tonight, but so far, you and Mr. Scott have been the only ones that have been able to get in. But I,
James, there's so much stuff going on now. I mean, even with baby food, the poor babies. What in the world have babies done to anybody? Baby food can't get. When I was a kid, my grandmother would take some greens, some cornbread, and some sweet potatoes, mash it up in her hand. Mine didn't chew it in her mouth and hand it to the baby. We wasn't waiting for nobody, Gerber and all these kind of people. Now we just hamstrung. If they don't give us anything, but babies can't eat. I've never. That's. I
yeah,
don't,
it's actually pathetic. I'm gonna resend this out for a moment, but it's remarkable how many things have all of a sudden been taken away from us or been taken for granted.
They're falling apart. Yeah.
Okay. There we go. There we go. Okay, I think we're in business.
Okay, I'm gonna resend this. Uh, okay, I'm gonna resend this link to Don right quick. Um, and I guess we can build a. What's that name? I mean, no, I'm going to start with you, Mrs. Scott, because we don't have Demetrius in here yet. So I'm gonna let you boast about your twins for a moment or two.
Yeah, he ducks me. Demetrius is ducking me. George, that's why Muhammad is the greatest because he didn't duck anybody. I mean, George Foreman, he fought shavers. Why did he fight shavers? He didn't even have to fight shavers. Nobody fights shavers, but Muhammad did it. George Foreman, he wouldn't fight shavers. So, Demetrius ducking me. So that's fine.
I'm sure somewhere Demetrius is across the continent, just wishing, chomping at the bit here. But your twins are in first place, I see.
Yeah. This division really looks like it's theirs for the taking. Detroit walk over, and then we get a succession of games with like Kansas City, Chicago, and Detroit. I mean, it's just victory after victory. It just keeps rolling. Chicago, I thought, was going to, they could be problematic, I think, in the division. But other than that, the Twins, well, it just seems to be their division to have this year. I mean, it's a long season. We're just in the beginning, but looking good.
Are you surprised at the number of no hitters so far this season?
Boy, that's interesting too. There's been talk about the balls being changed and a lot of low scoring games. You actually see teams really stealing bases now and doing some of the old school kind of things, hit and run. I don't know what to say about that. Can they change the ball? Maybe Bill knows. He's analytical.
Well,
Maybe he knows if they change the balls.
yeah, they have. There's some change in the way they treat the baseball. So, I mean, this is something you probably know. Just when a ball is drier and harder, right? I mean, it's springier and it carries farther. When you soften the ball, and that's what they end up doing with Colorado, right? When the Rockies first opened their ball field, because they're so high above sea level, and the balls would dry very quickly. The moisture goes out. It's a natural animal skin, and just like your skin, it has a certain amount of moisture in it. But since the animal is no longer there to continuously provide moisture for reasons that are obvious, pretty quickly it begins hardening. So every baseball is rubbed down with what they call Mississippi mud, right, or whatever term you want to use it. And I don't think it's from Mississippi, but it takes some of the it replaces some of the things that normally be provided by the living creature and puts some of those elements in there, and also it takes down some of the, it makes it easier to grip, a bunch of other stuff. So every professional baseball has been through a lot of treatment. They can change what they do to pre-treat these baseballs to make them harder, make them softer, make them this, make them that. And so there had been a move for a while to make the balls springier and harder, almost like a golf ball, right? It was a joke, about, remember when you see guys get fooled on a pitch, 67-pound utility infielder would get fooled on a pitch and still hit it out? And we're like, what the, right? What's going on? And now they're trying to basically rebalance the game back to what it used to be like. And so people are a little bit surprised when that 167-pound utility infielder gets fooled and makes contact, and the ball's now being caught, not even on the warning track. It's being caught, 272 feet into right center, as opposed to, clearing the wall. You can it's not so much that the players are huge, right? A lot of them are. They're bigger and stronger than ever before. But really, though, being powerful helps. We've all seen guys that were, 155, 160, 165 pounds who had no trouble taking the ball out, right?
Bill wrote his master's thesis on this, Mr. Scott, right?
I did not, but I did.
I wanted to interject on it real quick. I was at the Twins game when Justin Verlander nearly pitched a no-hitter.
Yep.
He got into the 8th inning with a no-hitter. Okay.
Yep.
And
so we could be easily be seeing more of them if they'd let guys pitch deeper in the game.
But what I wanted to follow that up with, every inning, the Twins pitcher would come off, and I was sitting right behind the Twins dugout, and the umpire has to go through his hands, see what he's got. Yep. But then when Verlander walked into the thing, Verlander just threw his hand up in the air and just went in. He didn't check Verlander's hands. He didn't rub his hands like he rubbed the other guy's hand. But they do that now after every inning, I guess, or maybe I don't know if they do it when every pitcher comes in, but they actually go through your hands to see that you don't have, I guess, a substance, as Bill is kind of alluding to.
Well, it's not so much the substance now that every park has a humidor. Remember, it used to be just Colorado. Now every park has a humidor, so all the baseballs, as opposed to just the ones in Coors Field, are being stored in the same conditions. That wasn't the case until very recently. Before you had.
Now, wait a minute. Are we leading up to Brady Gate here? Are we going to start letting the air out of baseball?
I think it's the opposite.
Are we going to start underinflating baseballs here?
Well, I think they're just putting them back to where they used to be.
Come on, Don. You got to contribute to this Texas baseball theory here. Now, come on.
Well, back in the day, I did hear that they used to put baseballs in the microwave for about 30 seconds. I don't know if that's really anything Bill's talking about. But,
well, I guess you could try that too. But they're trying to basically level the playing field. So it's the opposite of Brady Gate or whatever, Deflate Gate. It's essentially saying everybody have a level playing field. So not just Coors Field has a humidor. Not everybody has a humidor. That's the difference.
Well, not everybody has Justin Verlander's arm either. So I think we're forgetting about that part of the equation. Also,
I don't think anybody's forgetting anything. The pitchers were at a distinct disadvantage for a while because ballparks kept getting smaller and smaller and smaller. Right? Remember when you'd see those old pictures of the Polo Ground and you'd see 460 something, the deep center. I think the deepest ballpark left is 420 maybe. Maybe. I don't think there's a park that's more than 420 to any field nowadays. And think of how different that was 50 years ago, 60 years ago. There are ballparks that would be 450, 460, 472.
The Pittsburgh Park was 460 in center, okay?
Right.
Roberto Clemente said he saw Willie Stargell hit 200 balls to the warning track in that park, just in that park. So.
Yep.
You don't, and then what was it? Then you start seeing the substance on the balls and the guys pitching. But you know, but guys, there's some very interesting talk going back and forth in college football here. Boy, I just can't wait. Texas A&M and Alabama. Don, what is going on down there? Saban says the Texas A&M team is bought and paid for. Jimbo Fisher says Nick Saban's despicable. What's going on down here, Don?
Well, let's just be honest. Nick Saban's right. However, Nick Saban's been doing it for years. The SEC has been doing it for years. I mean, LSU, Alabama, Florida, Georgia, now A&M. And now that the NIL has made it legal, you're going to see a lot of it. I mean, it's just going to increase. I mean, there's no rules. There's no – NCAA isn't going to step in and do anything, so why not? Jimbo Fisher, he bought that recruiting class, but it's legal. It's all legal now. So what Nick Saban needs to do is get his boosters together. We got Bijan Robinson driving in a Lamborghini, so it's wild, wild west.
Yeah, I can't wait to see what the college football season is like out here at USC. It should be very interesting. Some of the new players, new faces. But Bill, is Don right?
I mean, it's sort of funny because Alabama has always had a distinct advantage in how do I put this? Incentivizing recruitment. And I think some of the anger or frustration is all about the fact that the playing field has been somewhat leveled, right? The fact that you don't have to be Alabama anymore to be able to now provide incentives to enrollment that previously only places like Alabama used to be able to pull off. And of course, obviously it wasn't above board. Now it's all above board. I'm thrilled, quite frankly. I'm thrilled because it means student athletes are getting opportunities they would not have otherwise have had. They're getting exposed to how business works, how negotiations work, how you can monetize what assets you have. I think it's fantastic. And the fact that it's making a fairly spicy rivalry spicier, like it's not like that rivalry really needed any help, but by God, nobody told Jimbo Fisher it didn't need help. So this is going to be a very, very fun football season. And I tweeted something out earlier today that SEC stood for soap opera entertainment conference, because there's going to be some soap opera entertainment in that conference this year. There's going to be some recriminations and backstabbings and you bitch slap like Dynasty in the old days. It's going to be crazy. It's going to be awesome.
Bill, Texas and Oklahoma haven't even entered a conference yet. It's going to get worse. It's going to get better. It's going to be must-watch TV.
It's going to be craziness.
I'm going to tell you right now that there's some crazy as hell Oklahoma boosters.
Yes.
Big red.
Really, Don? You
yeah, it's going to get interesting.
Since Bud, what's his name? I mean,
but that the Texas boosters, the Oklahoma boosters, the Texas A&M boosters have one thing in common: oil,
money.
Money.
Both things are true.
And right now, if you haven't noticed at the gas pump, oil is expensive.
This just did.
So
you should move to California.
Oh no.
If you think gas prices are, I think I heard someone bitching the other day back east about gas being $3.50 a gallon or something like that. I'm like, really?
Where does the bidding start today for you at the pump,
I think gas was $5.56 today. I believe.
Gee.
It's,
Oh,
it's,
It's four.
gee.
It's 419 in San Antonio, Texas.
oh man, hey, you're right.
$25 might get you a quarter of a tank. Okay, so
Yeah, it's really sick how gas prices, and it has nothing to do with the price of gas. But anyway,
Well, and it has nothing to do with all the things you've been told it's about. It's essentially just profit taking and price gouging, but nobody
gouging.
wants to admit that. But okay.
um, Mr. Scott, what are you most looking forward to this college football season?
I really follow the Big Ten a lot, and it's kind of been watered down with different divisions. And, why is Maryland in the Big Ten? Why is, Penn State? Why is Rutgers in the Big,
Oh,
it really is, and so we're actually positioned. This PJ Fleck has done a tremendous job, and we've got a chance to really rule the Big Ten, and that's what I'm looking for. I'm getting 2 tickets to see some games, and it's really, I mean, for example, last year his number one running back got hurt right away, Muhammad Ibrahim. Number
yep.
two running back got hurt in the next game. Number three running back got hurt, and then they were down to third and fourth, and they were in a game where they both got 100 yards in the game. So I mean, it's just that their program looks real good, and I'm just looking for really the Gophers. I mean, we beat Wisconsin last year. Usually could never beat them. So, and we don't have to play Ohio. That's another thing about the Big Ten. You don't have to necessarily play Ohio State or Michigan you can kind of fill your slate up with the Nebraskas and the Illinois and Indianas. And the Gophers are poised to do big things, I think.
Now, the Pac-12 is set to eliminate divisions, as or at least as we know them. How does this thing read here? Because it seemed rather peculiar, uh, but yet and still, what makes dollars make sense. So the Pac-10, the Pac-12. Wow, showing my age again. Scraps division title games after the division council votes to eliminate votes in the FBC title game, which simply means that are we going to have 5 big conferences eventually, and that's going to be it? What do you think about that, Mr. Scott?
It's possible, as a lot of schools are now absorbing. Like we had a long time D3 school here, St. Thomas, and now all of a sudden now they're Division One. But I mean, they have a stadium that's 15,000. I mean, are they going to play the Gophers? Are they going to play? So now they're Division One in sports. So and I guess it's a money game. I guess now that they're Division One, they get more TV revenue. They get more revenue here. I I mean, that's about all I can really say on it. I mean, I don't know why all these they seem to want to expand, and then they have this elephant in the room where are they going to pay the athletes in college sports? And so that seems like they came up with a deal where they could get paid for their image or uniforms or something, but I don't know that they actually get a salary. I don't know that they've actually come up with a plan to do something like that. I mean, here you have your stars, and then you have your guy that's the 69th player on the bench. I mean, who gets what? So it's, I don't know. College is kind of in flux to me with that
I
Harvard.
can answer that. I mean, it's what you can negotiate. That's what you get. So there are some guys who are non-starters or kickers or whatever, but they're really good at marketing themselves, and they've gotten some decent deals because they're winning personalities. They're good on camera. They have an interesting podcast. So you don't have to be the best player. Sometimes great players don't do as well as guys who are just good at selling themselves. It's really a good life lesson, actually, for these guys to say, because they tell them, go out and hunt up the deals. You're even allowed to work with agencies as long as the agency itself never gives you a dime. So they can help you to find deals. They just can't pay you. They can't loan you money, which was the big thing that agents used to get in trouble for doing, is loaning players money, as I'm sure you've heard about in the past. But this is avoiding all that because the money's always coming from a third party. It's coming from so-and-so's Dodge dealership or Mamma Mia's Pizza or whoever it is. And so they can do endorsements. They can be the official such and such of the place kickers at St. Thomas University, right? Ted Lee's tea is the official tea of the tight ends of St. Thomas University, right? Whatever it is. So the players are allowed to hunt up NIL deals, and what they get paid is what they negotiate, just like businessmen, which is what they're hopefully teaching them to be.
Don, what's your thoughts on this? Do you think that eventually this is going to end up in 5 or 6 super conferences?
Yeah, it's very possible. What's happening, and just going back to the Pac-10 eliminating divisions, the Big 12 did that several years ago. I mean, Big 12, everyone plays everybody, and then at the end you have a championship game. You take 2 top teams, which to me is kind of ludicrous, but. But I think what's happening in college football, and you've already seen it, real college football, as we know it, is going to be Division II pretty much and lower. So let's say you have a kid who's a freshman at, let's say, Sam Houston State in Huntsville, Texas. This is a FCS school.
Yep, and a good one.
And he's good. The kid's good. And the coach over at A&M says, hey, Sam Houston State has a pretty good, linebacker edge guy. So let's talk to him. So they get him at A&M in College Station. And so basically what you have is a farm system in college football. The good Division II players are going to move up to Division or FCS. The good FCS players are going to move up to, the Power 5. Basically, you're going to have 2 professional leagues. One just happens to still be in school, still in college. I mean, that's where it's kind of mapping out. And like I said, it's like a farm league. In baseball, you have the major leagues, you have AAA, you have AA, you have Class A, you have a rookie league. I mean, they play a league out in freaking Alaska, Midnight Sun League or something like that. Yep. So, I think that's where college football is headed. If you want to go see just kids playing for love of the game, go watch Division III or Division II because that's where it's at. If you want to see the future, the Power 5s.
I wanted you guys' take on this USFL thing.
Well, as a lifetime Pittsburgh Maulers fan, it was good to see them finally get a victory.
Bill, see, you have to dampen everything. See, yeah. But no, it was good to see them finally get that first victory. But Don, knowing you, diehard football, if they throw football up in the air somewhere Sunday, you're going to watch. I pretty much know it. But what's your take on this USFL thing? Some of the new rules, uniforms.
I'm going to have to admit, I have not seen a USFL game yet. I kind of keep up with it. But when they resurrected the USFL, they didn't give us the San Antonio Gunslingers. We have no Rick Neuheisel, so no Milton Hardaway. So no, but I'm all for playing seeing football. I mean, I just don't have time right now in the spring. My springs are crazier than my fall sometimes, but I think it's a showcase for players who might have been overlooked, in the draft, and second chance for some of these guys that had been on maybe practice squads, etc. So I'm before season's over, I'm gonna go watch a game or two so I can talk about it and not seem stupid.
What did you think about the USFL Mr. Scott?
Well, I'm kind of like Don. I really haven't sat down and watched a game. I've kind of glanced at some of the standings, and maybe when it gets to a playoff, or I noticed one quarterback used to be on the Vikings is playing for a team in the league. But I kind of switch gears. I'm still really watching the basketball, pro basketball. I'm getting into baseball, going to a few games, but I haven't really had a chance to watch. And I know I got a buddy in Houston. I should really call him because he's a big football guy, and they have a team in Houston. I don't know how the team is doing or anything, but no, I haven't really followed. I think they just have a tough thing. Now with the NBA championships and drafts coming up and baseball, it's always been a tough window to try to squeeze in some more pro football during this time of the summer. People have things to do, a lot of distractions. So I haven't had a chance to really look at it, but I will take a glance at it when it gets maybe around the championship time.
Well, Bill, I know you and Mike have both uh, drafted these guys and seen these guys from when they were in Pop Warner. But what's your assessment of this version of the USFL?
Huh. Wow. Oh, little slip there, James. Well said.
It tells it like it is.
As we head into week 6, we're beginning to see where the break point is between the really good teams, the competitive teams, the teams that, frankly, were not well constructed. The New Jersey Generals are really good, right? They're a really solid team from top to bottom. They're 4-1. They're first place in the North Division. I'll be shocked if they don't make a deep playoff run. Houston has lost 4 games in a row after getting off to a good start, so your friend is probably a little bit depressed. As I said, thanks to Bailey Gaither and Vad Lee coming off the bench from James Madison University, speaking of FCS, a member of an FCS championship team, one of the few teams to beat NDSU in the championship game ever, in fact, Vad Lee's James Madison team. But he came off the bench to help Bailey Gaither demolish their first win. Now they're playing the New Orleans Breakers, who probably will break them, but I think they'll give them a good fight. A really good game, I think it'll sort of decide which these are playoff teams is the Tampa Bay Bandits versus the Philadelphia Stars. The Bandits are 3-2, the Stars are 2-3. And then the best team in the league, the Birmingham Stallions, we've taken on the Michigan Panthers. The Panthers are 1-4 and probably will get utterly steamrolled, but the Stallions are loaded. They're well coached. They have a lot of really good players, including guys who had nice runs in the NFL on their team. So I've noticed there's a distinct difference when I look at the rosters and how these teams are put together. They had a territorial draft, and I think that is part of what played into it. I don't know if you guys watched draft night of the USFL, just me? Okay. So for those that did, the way that the territoriality worked is if the player played some or all of their college ball in your territorial area, and or if their hometown, I don't know exactly how you define hometown, but I guess lived the majority of their lives in your area, you had protected draft rights. Now, if you didn't draft that player after a certain point, they then would be opened up to other teams. So if you were wondering how the USL's territorial draft worked, the Stallions are, like I said, a really, really good team. They're well coached. They're probably almost as good as the better teams in the old USFL. Unlike the other teams in this version of USFL, they would not be able to stay on the field with the original USFL team. The LA Express with Steve Young and JoJo Townsell and Mike Sherrod and that bunch would destroy them. Irv Eatman, right? Irv Eatman was on that team. Those teams were really good. The original USFL was really good. Like they were this close. Like the best teams in the USFL would give a good game to some of the lower level NFL teams. There's no team in the USFL that would give a good game to an NFL team, but this Stallions team would give a good game to the lower level of the original USFL teams. If you want to get an idea of what's that like, if that helps.
Well, as I said, I was surprised Don hadn't uh, seen the game, but we'll have to remedy that. Looking at this Heat's Heat game, Heat Celtics here, it looks like two different games, which it actually is. But I mean, this really looks like two different games here. Were you surprised with the uh, way that the Heat handled the Celtics the first game, uh, Mr. Scott?
Yeah, I was. I was. I mean, the Celtics look very good, well coached, and ready to go. One of the better teams in the East, but they're a young team. And now we're in the rarefied era of playoffs, and for some reason, it gets hard to breathe. And voices go up a notch for some reason. And then Jimmy Butler, I don't expect him to go off like that though. I mean, that's to me that's an anomaly. I mean, I've seen his act. He'll get into it with something will happen with him. And I think Boston's still in this thing. This could be just a back and forth type of thing till it gets to a seventh game, and I think Boston will win it. I really think that they will win the thing. I don't think, you know, I just think Butler is such an X factor. He's such an X factor that I just like the team concept that Baltimore. I mean, the Celtics, the Boston show. So I like them.
Ranger, stop.
Ranger agrees
He's
wholeheartedly.
disagreeing with me. They all do that. So I mean, I don't have a problem with it.
Don, what did you think about that game? I know you didn't probably get a lot of chance to watch a lot of that, but what did you think about this matchup? Did you think that game was an anomaly, like Mr. Scott, or do you think it's going to be a competitive thing back and forth like tonight?
I think it'll be competitive, but I think overall, I think Boston has, a better starting five, maybe better bench, but I think it'll be fun to watch. But Celtics are going to be tough.
What do you think, dear Bill?
Well, I had the Heat winning this in 7. So I hate to disagree with Mr. Scott. I do agree that Jimmy Butler will not be like that every night. That's not realistic. But he'll be like that a couple more times. I've watched Jimmy Butler from his earliest days at Marquette, where he followed sort of his idol, I guess, to some extent. So he's always sort of, or at least originally modeled his game after sort of Dwayne Wade, right? Wade was sort of his guy. Went to Marquette, all that good stuff. And he's been a guy that I think people sold short, frankly, early in his career. I don't think people realized how good he was. The Bulls obviously didn't. Because it's not all skill, right? And it sounds hard to say that, but I remember the great Tom Havlicek quote, right? Hustle is a skill. And Jimmy Butler is a guy that if you just took the components of Jimmy Butler, you're not all that impressed. Decent size, but not terribly big for a small forward / big guard. He's on the smaller side of the small forwards and reasonably sized big guard. He can score. He's not one of the great scorers in the league, but he can score. He's a very much above average defender. He's a top 5 or 6 defender. No, he's probably a top 12 defender. He rebounds his position fairly well. He's an above average passer, not a great passer, but the components don't give you what he is, right? Because he has an ability, as we all remember from when he was in Philadelphia, to take the bottom 4 or 5 guys off the bench and go against the starters in practice and kill them. Kill them. Not even be competitive. Destroy them. And there's something about him, particularly in pressurized situations, where he simply is a better player than he should be based on his talent, based on what God gave him. Some guys, Thomas Edward Patrick Brady is one of the greatest examples of it, managed to somehow push beyond what God gave them and perform at a level that should not be possible. He won't do it every night because it's impossible to summon that every night. That's not realistic. But will he do it enough times? I think, especially in a game 7, I think he will.
Yeah. Got to get there. Got to get there first.
Oh, yeah, I agree. But I think it's going to go 7.
Okay. And of course, my favorite team to watch, Golden State. I think they're due for another championship, if you want to call it. Excuse me, if you want to use that expression. But uh, the Curry effect, young team, Looney, all of the parts clicking. Young man, Looney, 20 rebounds. I mean, I don't think that has that been done since Wilt, Bill. I know you would keep that stat.
It has been done since Will, but it hasn't been done often. It's that's something that's done regularly. No, yeah, they've got. First of all, I want to throw some flowers also in the direction of Steve Kerr. We sometimes have a tendency to act like NBA coaches, just sort of set the lineup and pick out the rotation and make sure everyone gets on and off the plane. And there are some teams where that's kind of the case, but he's not Phil Jackson exactly in the terms of the way that he gets inside players' minds and manipulates and stuff like that. He's more honest, first of all, than that. But he really does understand who his team is, who his players are. He knows what buttons to push. He knows when to lean into a guy and say, "Hey, I need more from you." And he has a really good sense of when to back off a guy and say, "Hey, we have good nights, we have bad nights." He really has a good sense, partially because he was a good but not great player. And I think those guys who were eighth off the bench have a better sense of what it's like to work hard as opposed to a guy who's the best of the best of the best, right? I think that guys like Jason Kidd have to work a little harder because the game came easier to them, quite frankly, than a guy like Steve Kerr. And so for them to coach, they sometimes wonder, well, why isn't this guy just going out there and being great, right? It's like Ted Williams struggled when he was trying to be a hitting coach. Like, well, why don't you just, watch it out of his hand and see if it's spinning this way? And it's like, I can't see that. Like, guys were frustrated because he was coaching them like he's coaching Ted Williams. Like, that doesn't work for me. I'm not you. I think Steve Kerr deserves a little more credit than we give him. Two, yes, that's a team that has a really nice mix of young guys trying to prove themselves and old guys with another 1 or 2 good years left in them. And the Lakers have been smart to keep that mix as opposed to going old across the board. And once again, I hate to keep rehashing how I said that was a terrible idea, but I like their chances. I really do like Golden State's chances. They're one injury away from being in trouble again because they don't have a lot of depth and they've already had some injury issues. So if they can hold enough healthy players together, I like their chances.
Yeah, I like them too. And I like, the big thing about, Steve Kerr that I've kind of observed over time is the players play for him.
Yes.
It's like there's something in these games where you can see where the teams and the players, they just seem to lose it for whatever that coach is. But they seem for him, he's and another guy that I think is underrated is Spoelstra. I mean, he's been there a long time. He's gone through all kinds of stuff with LeBron and Pat Riley. And I mean, come on. But he still meets the course. He still does his thing. I mean, those kind of coaches are, they kind of a step above a lot of the coaches to me in observing in the league. Once you're a brand new coach, it takes a while. This coaching thing is, as David Letterman would say, don't try this at home, folks. Because this is not an easy thing, to deal with these egos, to deal with the salaries, to deal with the ownership, to deal with the league, and COVID. I mean, so I give it to those long-term guys like Kerr and Spoelstra in particular, because they continue to keep their teams in the mix.
What's your thoughts there, Don?
Yeah, I think, of course, I got to see Steve Kerr firsthand as a player over here in San Antonio, and then he coached for a while. He's a very cerebral type guy. The players love him. I think Dallas is going to give them a lot. This could probably go 7 games. I mean, Dallas is like a ticking time bomb. You know, they're going to explode. But I think overall the experience that Golden State brings to the court and, the legend Steve Kerr, I think they will eventually win. But it's going to be fun to watch, needless to say.
Now, guys, all of you have had some coaching in their background and know what it means to lead a team. I think, Don, your team won a championship this year.
Yeah, we
Wow. I think you choked Bill there. So it must have been some of that Texas barbecue. I don't know what. Uh, but so I want to go back to some statements that were made by some Nets players about they didn't need a coach. Basically, what they needed was someone to go out there and present the line out, and they would work it out for themselves. Don, world be flat. And I know KD is a Texas alumni, but Don, you are who you align yourself with in this particular case. I mean, do you think that the Nets are going to be looking for a new coach or new players next year?
one doesn't dispel the other. I mean, it could be both. Who knows? But I think sometimes you have the chemistry of superstars that works perfectly. Sometimes you have the chemistry with superstars that doesn't work so well. But we say stuff like, "Well, we really don't need a coach." Well, that's how you end up not making the playoffs or taking the early exit. That's just mind blowing that someone would actually say that. But again, these players. I mean, let's face it. A lot of times they're calling the shots anyway.
Well, Mr. Scott, as we talked about last week, you now have, with this NIL thing, you now have players that are making more than the coaches. So, what's your thoughts? I mean, you were talking about will it go round in circles? I mean, are we losing essential parts?
Well, you talk about make more than the coaches. They make 10 times more than the coaches. I mean, in a lot of these circumstances, the coaches, I mean, and some of these guys, I mean, you look at the Nets. I mean, that was pathetic. I mean, they made a dumb trade and they get the Beard and this other guy that doesn't want to play. And then the guys hang around, with Drake and these kind of people. I mean, they can't help you during the season. The rappers can't help you. Going to the clubs, that can't help you. You have jobs to do, and these guys and the coaches don't seem to have the real authority. Doc Rivers, I mean, it looks like they're trying to run Doc out of the league for some reason. And Doc has won championships. But I mean, these new style of people, these new guys that, I mean, they got all these fans and groupies. Yeah, they can come to the game, but they can't help you. They can't help you win. You got to be in the gym. You got to do what you're supposed to do. So my thoughts are that it's a real imbalance between the stars. I mean, look at the Lakers. I mean, they say LeBron really run the Lakers. LeBron really said he wanted Westbrook, and they get rid of Hero. They get rid of the guy who went to Chicago. They get rid of all their bench players so that they can have Westbrook. And how does that turn out? So, the money drives it, and if you have that, then I guess you can take over the team.
Is coaching becoming obsolete, Bill?
Well, no, and we've seen evidence of it very, very all throughout this season. Well-coached teams still, even when the talent isn't even, sometimes when the team that is less talented is well-coached, those teams still sometimes pull through. And as was mentioned, Glenn Anton Rivers is in a tough bind. I remember saying specifically when we talked about the way these teams are constructed, I said these teams won't last. I said this team won't make it. I said the Nets aren't going to make it. I said that unequivocally. I said the Sixers are not going to make it. I said that unequivocally. The way those teams are constructed, they're not built to win in the playoffs. Period. New sentence. You do need to have, I guess, a certain amount of star power. But these just sort of loose conglomerations of great basketball players who don't necessarily mesh together, they just don't work. And we've seen it fail over and over and over and over again. And you think people would figure it out after a while. You can't just throw together a bunch of superstars or guys who were almost superstars in some cases, guys who think
What
they're superstars.
you mean I can't get Gary Payton, Karl Malone to come to the Lakers, and no, that didn't
They
happen.
did, obviously. Yeah, they got a few other guys who got the very tail end of their careers to come. And you would think the Lakers would have learned from that. You would think they would have learned from that, James. How it didn't work before. Oh, no, we're going to run it back. We're going to a bunch of guys of the last 2 or 3 years of their usable careers together. We're going to throw out there the 2013 NBA All-Star team. Like there comes a time when you have to realize what works and what doesn't. You need some young, hungry guys with fresh legs. Like, I hope the Lakers realize this now that, you can't have a team with an average age of 31 and win it all. Like, that doesn't work. You've got to have at least 3 or 4 young cats who get, back-to-back games don't make everything hurt all the time for them. Like, it's good to have guys who don't ache if they play 3 games in 5 days. It's good to have guys who still run and jump as if nothing were wrong, because nothing is wrong because they're 22, 23 years old. Like I said, Golden State is a really good example of how you do it, right? You have 2 or 3 guys who are in their, maybe 3 guys who are well into their 30s. You have a couple guys in their mid-20s, and then 3 or 4 really young cats, 22, 23, 24 years old, who can play and play and play. Who could play back-to-back games if they had to and be just fine. If your team is all old guys, no matter how talented the old guys are, it catches up with you. Please stop doing this, people who think that this works. Like, how many times you must be shown this doesn't work? You've got to have a blending together of different kinds of players. Loading up a bunch of aging superstars, like, when has that worked? And so I would like people to take from this that this is not the way to build a team.
Mr. Scott, what are we gonna do with Cat and your boys up there in Minnesota?
Do with who?
Cat. Carl Anthony Towns.
Oh, well, they're going to be good. They're going to probably move D'Lo. I mean, I think that, they brought him in. They thought he would be a point guard, but that's not really what he is. And that's what they need. And so that's going to be their thing, to find somebody to take D'Angelo Russell off their hands. And I think he's another one that has a big salary, in the 30s of millions. And but with Anthony Edwards and Towns, good bench, Fitch seem to play for the coach. I think they're on the move, but they got to get a point guard. They got to find somebody to take D'Angelo. They got to find somebody to take him. Then other than that, they look like they can make a move. In the West is tough, but Cat was an all-star. Anthony Edwards, best rookie, up and coming. So I like our fortune. We're better than the Pistons. We'll beat the Pistons. No problem beating the Pistons. So.
Well, he had to get that dig in on Demetrius when he's not there. They just stick the knife a little. Don, very little noise as usual coming out of Texas. What's going on with Pop, man?
Well, I know this. I'm sounding like a broken record, and I say it every time you ask me. There's nothing coming out of Spurs right now. They never. I mean, maybe it's because we're not a big market. I don't know, but there's really nothing coming out. And the only thing I've heard from the Spurs within the last 2 weeks is that they're sending schools applications to the Spurs summer camps for little 10, 12-year-old kids to go learn basketball skills from.
There you go.
I mean, which is great. I mean, the Spurs in San Antonio have always been good, public relations wise. They're very in tune with the community.
Yep.
But if you want like scandal, like who's sleeping with who's beating up who, all that left with Tony Parker. So,
was Popovich going to stick around? Is he going to be there for a while?
As far as I know, we keep saying, well, this last year, but this year, so last season the Spurs were just terrible. This year they were competitive, and
Yep.
I think that might have sparked something in Pop. So we'll see.
Yeah.
But right now, the news is coming out of Dallas. They're in the playoffs and they're in the Final Four. So that's what's going on in Texas. If I hear anything from the Spurs, I will definitely bring it up on the show.
So here's what's going to happen with the Spurs. They're going to draft 2 or 3 guys from like maybe Suriname or Montenegro or maybe a guy from like, Lower Slobovia or whatever. And, you won't hear about them for 2 or 3 years because they'll be playing in, Olympiacos or, Maccabi or whatever. Then they'll suddenly pop up in the NBA and be good. Like, oh, I forgot about that guy they drafted 3 years ago. That's what's going to happen. That's what the Spurs are going to do. We can write it down now, and then 3 years from now, we can talk about it when these guys make it to the U.S.
Yeah, I know they have 2 or 3 prospects in Austin. The developmental league, they're supposed to be, pretty good. So we'll find out how that works out.
Okay, well, let's talk about some of the things that happened in the NBA. I mean, the NFL. Let's talk about some real football here. Okay. My boy Dylan didn't get here tonight, but we know that Jarvis Landry and Honey Bear have both signed with the Saints.
Is Honey Bear your new nickname for Tyrann Mathieu?
Yes.
Okay.
As of last week, okay. He's Honey Bear. He's no longer the Honey Badger.
Got it. Okay.
He's gotten a little fat from all that.
Right.
Money
he's bulked up a little. I got it.
Yeah. But how much have the Saints bolstered their quest for the title over Mr. Brady? Of course, we know that matchup will always be there, but let's talk about the moves that the Saints have made, Bill.
Yes, as you gear up for the revenge or whatever season for Jameis when he faces Tampa Bay. So they haven't gained enough ground on Tampa Bay. But here's who might have gained a little ground on Tampa Bay. 2 things. The salary cap and maybe Father Time. And obviously, Thomas Edward Patrick Brady has done a better job of holding off Father Time than any other player in the history of the game. I think we all can agree to that. But as we always say, Father Time's undefeated. There's going to be a time when we start to sort of see a little bit of slippage. And it might not even be, arm strength, things like that. It might be that he gets a little hamstring, right? That when you're 25, maybe you miss 1 game. But when you're 45, maybe you miss 3 games. Like your body just doesn't bounce back like it used to. We might see a little something that lets us know, that he's actually a human being. I think that they're going to still be a good competitive team, but I think Tampa Bay's days as a juggernaut are over. So I think it'll be less about the Saints getting that much better, incrementally better, I guess. But I think it'll be more about the fact that Tampa Bay is going to take a little step back. Probably not a big enough step back for them not to still win it, but I don't think they're going to be a team that's going to be just trampling over people anymore.
What's your thoughts on the Saints, Mr. Scott?
Well, I thought I saw something about Drew Brees said he's coming back.
Well, he didn't say that definitively, no. He said maybe.
See that?
He said maybe. He said, I don't know what I'm going to do. I said, I maybe will. Players say things, but we'll see. He hasn't said he's definitively coming. No, he said, I don't know what I'm going to do is what he said.
Well, he's out of his TV gig.
Right. And that's why they asked him about it. And he said, I don't know. He said, I don't know what I'm going to do. He said, maybe I'll play again. That was what he said. He didn't say I'm coming back.
But if he comes back, this whole conversation is changed. Because he might see what Brady can do and say, "Hey, I can do that."
We'll see if you can do that. You said the done, Mr. Scott.
Don?
Well, I definitely think Jarvis Landry coming back is a good sign for the Saints. I just don't know if they have the fresh legs to make a big. I mean, they'll have a winning season, but I don't know if they'll even make playoffs. If Drew Brees comes back, and I'm a big Drew Brees fan, have been since he was at Westlake High School.
Westlake High, yep.
I don't think him coming back is going to be a game changer.
Here's the thing: he's gonna play for vet minimum? I mean, I don't know if you've noticed, but as happens every year, the Saints have had to do some voodoo economics to even make the salary cap work this year. What are they going to pay him?
Yeah, that's a good point. And I don't know, if he's willing to, take the cut from what he had the last time he was in uniform. There are players out there who are kind of like that, who just, enjoy the game for the game. But, when you're pushing 40, you start thinking about stuff like physical health and, arthritis and not getting up in the morning, get up in the morning, go pee and your knees just crack and ache. And so, there's things to think about. I just don't think.
Well, who's their coach? And who's their coach? Didn't their coach quit?
Yeah.
Who's their coach now?
It's Dennis Allen.
Oh, okay.
You remember Dennis, don't you, Mr. Scott?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, I knew Peyton had left. I guess they hadn't really, followed it too.
Yeah. He also is going to be doing television for big money, which is very seductive. Wait, I don't have to get in the office at 3:00 in the morning anymore. I don't have to try to beat Bill Belichick anymore. And you pay me how much? Oh, why wasn't I doing this before?
So now another team that went with wide receivers, including after they got rid of the quarterback, Matty Ice, now they've decided that they want to go the tall route, the wide guys, the big guys. But is this really going to work for the Falcons, even though they only have a bridge over troubled waters as a quarterback?
To whom was that directed?
Bill.
Oh, okay. I didn't hear my name. Sorry. Well, what do you mean by work? I mean, I think that they are, to quote what they used to say about the 76ers during a certain time in their history, they're in the trust the process phase. I think that if they win 5 or 6 games, that'll be cool and everything. But look at the way this team is constructed. They're not built to win now, and they're not even built to win next year. They're built to win 3 years from now, right? They'll be competitive in 2024, 25, somewhere in there. They have some good young players. AJ Terrell is on the cusp of being an elite cornerback. Obviously, they've got to figure out what they're going to do about Calvin Ridley. They might be able to void his contract. I guess it depends on, I've actually seen the contract itself, but it depends on what the actual clauses are contained therein. But they do have a couple of interesting young players, and they've got, they're soon going to have a fair amount of salary cap to play with in a couple of years as well. So they should have one of the biggest caps available in a couple of years. Desmond Ridder might be the quarterback of the future. We'll see. Cordell Patterson has found a really sort of role that fits him well, somewhat similar to what we have with Debo, only it's sort of more weighted towards not catching the ball than catching the ball sometimes. I mean, he could do a little bit of everything. Kyle Pitts is a future superstar, sooner rather than later. But yeah, they added some offensive punch, some offensive power. Marcus Mariota gets at least one more shot to prove he might be an NFL starter. If he has a fantastic year, then he probably holds on to the job. If not, they draft a quarterback next year. Here's a name I want you to remember: D'Angelo Malone. I would not be shocked if he's not in. I think he has a chance to be in the running for Defensive Rookie of the Year. He is a very talented, polished pass rusher who really played like a professional even before he made it to the pros. So I think he's going to make an impact for them early and often. They have one of the best place kickers in the NFL, right? Young Wei Koo, right? There we go. Young Hova. Grady Jarrett is, getting a little older, but he turns 30 during the season, but he's still one of the best 3 techniques in the game. And yeah, they've got a lot of guys. There's not a lot of star power on the team. I think we're all aware of that, but that's fine. This team is truly in a gut rebuild. I'll give you one other guy to look out for. In fact, 2 others. They have a couple of the young guys I think are going to be something. Both Kunni Dang from California and Arnold Ibikiti are also 2 guys on defense I really like. But yeah, they're retooling. I mean, there's pick a term if you don't like rebuilding. This team is going to look very different in a couple of years than it does now.
Don, are the Falcons competitive in 2 or 3 years, like Bill says?
Well, the ingredients are there. You just don't want to, add too many eggs to that mixture. Of course, I'm a homer, but I like Taquan Graham. Defensive lineman from UT. He's probably been the 2 deep. They have a lot of young guys. We talk about how big the receivers are. It's just Mariota can make it click with his young receivers, and then can a defense hold teams to under 21 points a game? That would be ideal. I think they can. I mean, maybe not this year, but again, like Bill was saying, it's only a matter of time before they start to gel.
What do you think about Atlanta, Mr. Scott?
I don't know much about them. I don't know who their. Let me see. I don't know who their quarterback's going to be.
Marcus Mariota. Right?
Oh, they made that. Okay.
Yeah.
They made the move. And the longtime quarterback, where they had stability, he's gone. I think to Mike's team, Indianapolis. So I don't know. I'm just going to watch them in their division. I don't know a whole lot about them. I haven't really followed them.
What's your prediction this year for that Green Bay rivalry?
Well, I mean, I think the Vikings are going to just get this division. I mean, I think they've made some great moves. The draft day, I don't know why he would make trades with Detroit and Green Bay. I mean, I don't understand. I don't understand why he did that, but they're saying that he came out better on the deals, and but you can't help division rivals. So he's very analytical, and I know that this is Bill's thing. Analytics, this is the way to go. But I believe block, tackle, hit, run the ball, keep the ball. I believe the old school, football. So I think the Vikings look like they are the class of the division. The Bears, disarray. Lions are still the Lions. I don't care what I'm sure Demetrius will have a different take on it, but the Lions are still the Lions. We can almost always count those as 2 wins. That's almost always 2 wins right there. And then, Green Bay is down. They've lost. They've lost a lot of people. They're kind of rebuilding. Not sure what they think about their coaching and GM. Rodgers is kind of, mentality is a little fragile, leadership. So I think it's right there for the Vikings to really take this division. And I think it's I'd be surprised if they didn't win this Central Division. I would really be surprised.
Okay, what do you think about that? About those words, Don?
Well, I mean, again, on paper, you're looking at a team that has potential to, definitely make the playoffs. But I mean, but on the other hand, there's a lot of question marks that like, can this guy do this? Can this guy do that? I'm cautiously optimistic that, not that I'm a big Vikings fan, but I mean they're in that Ranger. Damn. Anyway, where was I? Oh, it's always fun to watch them play, especially those rivalry games with Chicago and Green Bay.
Yeah.
So I'll be watching. Hang on a sec.
Is this the Vikings year, Bill?
What do you mean by their year? I mean, can they be an 11-win team? 100%. I would agree with that. If if you mean winning the Super Bowl, a lot would have to happen. A lot would have to go their way. I'll put it that way. I recently did. I'm doing a video review of all 32 teams in terms of their cap space, their draft, and their undrafted free agent signings. And the Vikings clearly have a type, right? Certain teams have a draft personality, or however you want to put it. And so you can see you get a pretty good sense of what they like when they put their team together. And they certainly have some things when you look at sort of their depth chart. You say, okay, I like that. I like that. I like that. And there's some things when you look at their chart, you go, not sure I like that. If their pass rush doesn't improve dramatically, they're going to have some games where they're going to be in some shootouts that they might win, but it's a dangerous way to live. I'll put it that way. We all love Justin Jefferson. I think he's one of the best young receivers he might be the best, certainly one of them. I mean, he and Jamar Chase, right, former teammates, are probably the two best young receivers, guys who are less than 25 years old in the whole NFL, right? I think Christian Darrisaw is going to be a solid left tackle. I like Ezra Cleveland at guard. Garrett Bradbury is solid. They're probably tossing a rookie at right guard. Unless Wyatt Davis really gets his act together, that's probably Ed Ingram's job. Brian O'Neill's solid-ish. I don't like their tight end situation. There's not a single tight end.
If Irv comes back. See, if Irv comes back.
Yeah, I'm not wild about him either, but okay. To me, they're all just guys. Irv Smith is probably the best of the bunch, but none of them excite me. Kirk Cousins is obviously the great X factor. If he's great all year long, they really could be a dangerous team. Dalvin Cook's Dalvin Cook. If he stays healthy, he's really the key to them being able to get a lot of things done. But look at the issues they've had in generating pass rush. Danielle Hunter is actually a very good pass rusher, but you can put all your sort of eggs in stopping him. Now, Zadarius Smith coming there might be the key to maybe freeing him up. They bring back Eric Kendricks, Jordan Hicks, who's sort of Eric Kendricks all over again. Very similar guys. Armon Watts is, a decent player. Harrison Phillips comes via Buffalo. We'll see if he can help a little bit. And Dalvin Thompson's very good against the run. Another guy's coming via free agency from the Giants. Patrick Peterson has decided to run it back, so
yeah,
we'll see. We'll see what happens with that. I think we might be seeing him, unfortunately, in sort of his dotage, and he might end up giving up some big plays. Lewis Seen is a talented young safety, but he's going to probably struggle with the mental side of the game early in his career. You've got Andrew Booth, who is also very talented, but very young. He's going to give up some, rookie mistakes. And they have my boy Showtime Sully, Shannon Sullivan, at corner. I also like Perry Nickerson, the other corner, the other backup nickel. Those are two guys I both really like. But you can see that defense is, to me, the key. If their defense plays better than I think it will, they've got a real shot. I just don't see that as being one of the better defenses in the NFL.
Don, more likely to succeed this season, Tua or Hurts?
I'm going to say Hurts. And the reason I say that is, of course, they're both, talented guys, but Hurts he broke my heart when he went to Oklahoma and did that to Texas twice. So of the two, I would say Hurts.
Who do you like, Mr. Scott?
I don't know. I guess I like the guy with some experience. Some of these guys that they're looking for their shot. Tours and it's, I had some experience. I mean, it's kind of a now or never thing, and I'll go with him over the other guy.
Oh, okay. Bill, how did you rate the Clowns draft? If you had to give it an overall grade, Bill, did we lose Bill?
It's on mute.
I think I see his mouth moving.
No, his mouth's not moving.
No, I think.
Froze or something. Look like this.
eh,
Earth to Bill. Earth to Bill.
Okay, I'm sorry. So define success. I think Hurts will have more fantasy points, if that means anything. I think both teams are going to be kind of stuck in the mud a little bit. And this is the make it or break it year, obviously, for Tua Tagovailoa. They've decided to remove all of the excuses, right? They've fixed the offensive line, a fair amount at least. The running game should be improved, and they've loaded up the targets in both tight end and wide receiver. So if he struggles, he's probably going to be shown the door, even though he's still very, very young. In the case of Jalen Hurts, I mean, it's an interesting question to ask because they don't have a loaded situation, right? It's not like Tua where they've removed all possible questions, doubted impediments. He's still, they have some good young players, especially I really like Devontae Smith. And they've added some other young pieces, but is there a superstar in the bunch? I don't see one anywhere, frankly, on the offensive side of the ball. They have some stars on defense, maybe, but there's not a single star, right? A guy where people go, oh, wow, that guy's amazing, anywhere on their offense. So they may win the AFC East, but Jalen Hurts may not light it up, except by scoring a fair amount of touchdowns with his feet as well. So he might actually outscore Tua in terms of fantasy points because he scores a fair number of running touchdowns. But I don't think that offense is built to exactly light the world on fire. So they may be a 9-win team, but that might be enough to win the East. I don't think the AFC East, NFC. Sorry, I think the NFC East is going to be very good. So 10 wins might do it. So they might win the East without him having a great season.
Bill, what do you think about the Seahawks draft and excuse me, got to pull up his name here.
Tariq Woolen, maybe?
No, Kobe Bryant.
Oh, okay. The other corner they drafted. Okay, so I mentioned Tariq Woolen because he's sort of the quintessential Seattle corner, right? Long, former wide receiver, right? Just like Richard Sherman. Unlike Richard Sherman, he's not very polished. And unlike Richard Sherman, he's a super athlete. And Sherman was sort of a marginal athlete at the corner position. Still a great athlete for people, but not great at the corner position. Kobe Bryant's a 4.57 40, which means he has to play a lot of zone. But he's smart. He's not a huge cat, like 5'11 and 3/8, 191 or something like that. So he's not the biggest guy in the world. But he's smart and tough. He might end up being kicked inside to nickel maybe, but yeah, I think he's going to succeed. I think he's going to play well. And Tariq Woolen's the big name acquisition amongst the corners they drafted, obviously, because he's this freak athlete and he's this big kid, but still basically a wide receiver pretending to play cornerback because he hasn't really internalized the position. The Seahawks draft differently from everyone else. And there's certain teams that have a different draft personality from other teams. The Patriots are the most obvious example. That's an easy one. But even other teams that have slightly different approaches. The Browns, right? The Browns are very driven by analytics. They care a lot about age. They care a lot about if you fit certain prototypes instead of height, weight, and speed. And some teams don't care, right? The Steelers don't. They'll draft guys who are too slow or too small or too old, and they just don't seem to care. So the things that'll be the secret for them is, can their young guys they got contribute now, right? Because they don't really have a lot of time to wait. I mean, Pete Carroll is, I think, 70 or turns 70. So there's a pretty good chance he's not going to be coaching for 5 years. He's probably going to coach for a couple more years. And as we all know, they don't have Russell Carrington Wilson walking through that door anymore to sort of cover up the litany of ills on their offense. So they need some of those offensive players they brought in, including some guys who, came in as even some undrafted free agents need to come in and contribute. And I'll give you one to look out for, a kid from Lenore-Ryan. And Lenore-Ryan, obviously, this is a kid they drafted 233rd overall, 7th round. So not quite undrafted, but barely, late in the draft. And they call him Derek the Freak for a reason. He made Bruce Feldman's Freak List. He's a big, strong, fast wide receiver, somewhat raw, but he could essentially step into a role where you've got Lockett in the slot, and obviously you've got DK Metcalf in the X. If Derek Young can become essentially another DK Metcalf at the Z, now you've created a problem, a bind for the defense, because you're going to put your best cover corner, you're going to roll your safety over towards Metcalf, and you're going to hopefully have a nickelback who can at least slow down, Tyler Lockett, who's very, very good. But you're putting, you're probably your third best cover guy on this Derek Young. And if Derek Young shows up and shows out, they could have some easy big play touchdowns, assuming Drew Lock season, which is not 100% thing you can count on sometimes. But that's really what they're gambling on. If Drew Lock pulls it together and their running game gives them the ability to have some simplified situations, if Bo Melton becomes that guy that when you throw him out there in that double slot situation where he's in one slot and you've got maybe Lockett in the other, and they can go 4 wide, they can spread them out. And if all 4 of those receivers win consistently and you have a really good running game, they can score points. If that doesn't happen, the running game isn't dominant and Drew Lock doesn't develop, they'll be one of the worst offenses in football. So they've got a lot tied up in one young Drew Lock there.
Don, is it time for the Cowboys to set Zeke down and make Tony Pollard?
My God, it sounded like you think about it and shoot him the way you said it, Dave. Jesus.
Well,
put him down, God.
That sounds like something you do to a dog.
Right. Have it be,
put that dog down.
Euthanize? Are you going to euthanize him?
What the hell?
Euthanize a contract, maybe. But, I mean, come on, Don. I mean, it has been 80 yards and then 20 yards of Zeke. Come on.
Yeah. Now, Zeke is, he has his talent, but I really like Pollard. I mean, the guy gives a burst of energy. He can actually do some things that Zeke either can't do or doesn't do as well as he used to. I like, Pollard has a good running style. He has deceptively good feet. So I'm not going to say sit him down per se, but I would like to see Pollard get an equal share of carries. I don't think that they should go all in on Zeke. That they still have a good wide receiver core. So the offensively, I think they'll be fine.
So you're suspecting them on defense?
Well, their defense is getting better. Jerry Jones has drafted this past year. The last 2 years, he's actually taken steps to shore up the defense. So I just think that the Cowboys are going to be competitive. They're going to be better. I don't know if they're going to be, uh, they're not going to. Well, they're not going to make the NFC Championship game. Let's just put it that way. But I could see them going, one or two games in the playoffs.
What do you think, Mr. Scott? Is it time for Tony Pollard to start as a quarterback for the Cowboys?
Running back? No, there's nothing wrong with having two good running backs. I mean, the season's too long. The season's too long as it is. I mean, nothing wrong with having. The question comes down to: do you want to pay two good running backs? Do they want to accept what they, want to be a backup? But two good running backs is a nice problem to have, and I think that's. I mean, with injuries and keep your continuity of your offense going with two good running backs. No, I don't think so. I think they're both good. I think Ezekiel still got some miles on the tread, and the young guy coming up, and I'd like to see him run with it this year. At some point the Cowboys just got to get over the hump. I don't know how much longer Jerry Jones can take this. I mean, it's just like. They've had the best offensive lines. They have the best defense. They have the highest paid players, but they just can't, they just can't get out of the mix. So I think this is, he's going to want to see this happen this year, next year. So, but no, two running backs, I think it's a nice problem to have.
Bill, is Drake Jackson a good compliment for Bosa, or does he just have a trouble staying healthy?
Yeah, well, Drake Jackson is an interesting player, and he's one of the younger players. First of all, that helps. I mean, once again, they're another team that's somewhat driven by things like that. They like analytics, and Tom Telesco is a smart guy, so I think that he'll see. They'll probably move him around. He won't just be lining up in the same place all the time. I think they'll stand him up at times. I think he'll have his hand in the dirt, maybe even kick inside a little bit at times, though he's not big enough to do that consistently. They're going to try to hunt for matchups. They're going to try to find who's the weak link in your offensive line, and boom, go find that guy. But I don't think he's ever going to be an elite pass rusher, but he doesn't have to be, right? He can just be the other guy. He can be Anthony Spencer to DeMarcus Ware. He can be, Rob Ninkovich to Willie McGinnis. He can be the other guy. And I think that's really what he's in an excellent situation to do that. And one thing, he's young enough that he can still develop. And the guy is, just turned 21 on April the 12th. So he's one of the 4 or 5 youngest players in the whole entire draft. And, things that you like about him, obviously, is, he was well coached. He has a good pedigree, long arms. But Drake Jackson, yeah. Reasonably explosive. He was a productive guy. I just think that the real question marks on him, one is, even though he is young, and has good quickness and has good length, you'd like to see him sharpen. Like, he doesn't have a great amount of pass rush counters. He doesn't have great lower body strength. He doesn't always fight through that initial punch if an offensive lineman does, manage to get their hands on him. And I just like him. I like him to play, I hate to say meaner, but I wish a little more fire in his belly. Pick a term. I wish he, had a little more of that streak, as sometimes people will say. I wish he had a little more streak, and I wish he had a little more strength. Streak and strength. If he can put on another, say, 12 pounds of muscle and still play, still have that quickness, and if he can develop a little more, tough guy, a little more meanness, he has a shot.
Don, what do you think about Giants coach Brian? Excuse me, Gaboyle? He wants Daniel Jones to turn
Brian Dayball. Okay.
Is it Dayball?
Brian Dayball. I was like, what is he saying? Oh, Brian Dayball. Yes. The former offensive coordinator at with the Buffalo Bills, and then also was an offensive analyst and coach for Saban in Alabama. Yes, Brian Dayball.
Yeah. But is that just coach's language for to get better or get gone?
Can you repeat the question? You're talking about
We're talking
Coach
about the,
Dave-
the
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 Giants.
Giants. Yeah, the new coach. He says that he wants Daniel Jones to turn the ball loose. So is he basically saying either get rid of the ball or we're going to get rid of you?
Well, I mean, I think the message is we need to, I guess, develop more of a gunslinger mentality. Like maybe he wants Daniel Jones to be the next Brett Favre. Just go out there, let it all out. Maybe that's what he's talking about. I don't know what's going in his head, but I do know that New York is due for a good season. It seems like it's been a while. So I don't know. I don't know what he meant by that comment. I guess it's more of a take a looser approach and don't hold the ball too long. Don't look at any receivers. That maybe something to that effect.
What do you think he meant by that, Mr. Scott?
Well, I mean, I think he meant, the guy's a new coach and he doesn't know if this quarterback's any good. I mean, nobody knows if he's any good. I mean, he hasn't really showed that he's any good. And so I think he's like, okay, this is your chance. Show me that you can lead this team, that you're a good quarterback and you want to be our guy. But he hasn't shown it yet. He hasn't seen enough to say, okay, so I think that's kind of a challenge to the guy to say, look, show us that you're any good, because he hasn't really shown anybody. Giants have what do they win? 3, 4, 5 games? So I think that's the coach was kind of sending a message, show us that you're good so that I can get behind you. Because, let's face it, the coach's job is on the line. If the quarterback's no good, the coach, he's in a bad situation,
Oh, hey, most definitely. Bill, the Panthers quarterback Sam Donald is ranked number 32 by Chris Sims. Is he really that bad?
Well, he might be lower than 32. So there might be some guys who aren't starting he might not be as good as. This is going to be another make or break type situation. So, is he better than Tyrod Taylor? Tyrod Taylor's not officially a starter right now. So I don't know if he's 32. There's guys who aren't starting who I think are better.
Well, so where do you rank him, Don?
Well, I don't have that knowledge in my head to where each quarterback is, but Sam Donald being 32, he. I don't think
Bill might have him 34, 36.
Yeah, I don't think
about 36, but I think Taylor Heineke's just as good, if not better, and Heineke's not a starter right now.
I don't think there's a lot of leeway in that ranking. 32, 33, 34, 32, 31, 30. Anywhere, any of those numbers right there would be about right for Sam Darnold.
What do you think, Mr. Scott?
Well, I think guys like that, they really only get a chance or get a shot if something catastrophic happens, like to the starter. Then they get a chance to show by a default. If they get in and play good, they get a chance to show. But they're not, to me, a guy that you're going to try to start building your offense around, that this is the long term. Guys like that, to me, they get their shot if it's an accident. somebody gets hurt, and then they get in, and everybody says, "Oh, guys, looking good," and then boom, like a Case Keenum or they get a shot.
Teddy
and all
Bridgewater
things-
is backing up Tua right now. He's better than Sam Darnold.
Yeah, he's better. So not an impressive resume.
Guys, does Baker Mayfield end up with a job by opening day?
Not by opening day, no. But he ends up with a job before it's all said and done.
And where would you possibly see him landing? One
Well,
of three.
it's going to take an injury. So you're asking me to guess who's going to get hurt. Let me think.
Yeah,
Who's
please.
injury prone? Let's see. I mean, if a guy like who might get hurt? Let me think. Hey, who's due for an injury? Gosh, that's a great question.
Kirk Cousins.
Iron Man, and the best businessman in football. An Iron Man.
He is very high on my
Yes.
my SPQFI, my Sam Bradford quarterback finesse index. He's way up there. Yes. Yeah, I mean that's what's going to take. So a team that's contending, right? It's week 10, and you're 7-3, and your starter goes down, and you don't like your backups. So tell me which team that is. That's where he goes.
Dallas Cowboys.
Could be.
Okay.
I could see Jerry Jones liking him, right? I could see Jerry Jones actually liking a guy like that and doing commercials together. Oh my God, the commercials they would do together.
What do you think, Don? Does Baker end up with a job by opening day?
I think so. I mean, if anything, he's resilient. I mean, Cleveland has, on a depth chart, it's pretty much Baker and Deshaun, and I haven't heard in a while. I don't know what.
Well, they got Brissett now. They still, so far,
Well,
he's on the roster.
is he better than Sam Darnold?
Probably, yeah.
Maybe. No, but we don't know what. I haven't heard lately what Deshaun Watson's legal issues are. I don't know if he's still in the doghouse or whatever.
Well, as of now, I believe the last word is that there will not be a trial in 2023.
But I do know that
Isn't that the way it goes, Bill?
Well,
there won't be any legal.
I mean, he's not gonna face a criminal trial law because the criminal cases were dropped. He's going to almost definitely face a civil trial unless he settles. And I guess that's what's being decided now. If he decides to settle, which so far at least he seemed like he's not interested, but he may get interested. So we'll see what happens. I mean, I'm sure the negotiations are going on literally as we speak behind, maybe not closed doors, but cell phone doors or whatever. And if he serves a lengthy-ish suspension, see, here's the nightmare scenario for the Browns. So he gets a fairly lengthy suspension, 10 games, and Baker goes out and kills it. They're 8-2. That's the nightmare scenario for the Browns, right? Where he's great, right? He's out there killing it. Now, the good news is he's raised his trade value, but the bad news is what if Deshaun Watson comes in and he's rusty and doesn't look as good as Baker? Now you've got the mother of all quarterback controversies. You've got once again, it's a soap opera, right? It's an utter and complete soap opera. So the best case scenario is he gets a suspension that's not quite as long, 6 games, and Baker's okay, 2-4, 3-3, but doesn't set the world on fire. And his trade value isn't crushed by it, but it's not elevated. But at least you get something for him. You move him, and you move on with your life. But yeah, the nightmare scenario is he's great. He's fantastic, right? He's a top 4 or 5 quarterback in the league in those 10 games, and now you got to bench him. Oh yeah, that would be awesome.
What's your thoughts on that situation there, Mr. Scott? You don't think Deshaun should have any ramifications from the NFL?
Well, he's just in a bad spot. I mean, for one, for this civil thing, this is about money. And so he could settle with these people to give them some money. But see, now that they know he's got $230 million contract, their price then went up. So their settlement price then went way, way up now. And so I think that he should be allowed. I mean, he's already sat out a year. He's already been out. He didn't play at all last year. So why does he have to sit out some more? For what? He's not criminally charged, civil. So I think he's going to play. And I think they're going to have to keep the other guy as a backup because the guy hasn't played in a year. Will he go to camp? We don't even know if he's going to go to camp. Is he training? We don't know what kind of shape he's in. And so I think that Baker Mayfield will still be on the Browns. For circling back to the original question. And as far as Watson, his stuff is going to play out because he's got a lot of money, and they're not going to settle with him cheap now because he's got the big contract. So I think Mayfield will be there.
I mean, Don, there might be a reason for him to get that $230+ million guaranteed contract. Maybe that he has to have money to stay there. So the Browns figure they might as well pick up his services. Do you think that there's going to be any NFL suspension for Deshaun, Don?
Very possible. I mean, the Me Too movement's still alive and kicking, so you just never know. Wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, there's a lot to be said there to see what's going on as far as Baker Mayfield, the NFL, different contracts, NIL. I'm sure we're going to be talking more and more about that as things go on. In passing thought here, Mr. Scott, why don't you give us your final thoughts for the evening and tell everybody where they can find you? I know you have a book out to give us. We'll give you a free plug for your book here.
All right, thank you. Yeah, Minnesota's. We have a small nonprofit, Minnesota's Black Community Project here in the Twin Cities. I live a few blocks from the infamous George Floyd Square here in Minneapolis and spent a lot of time up there last year. And I have some pictures from those events that will be coming out too. As another project I'm working on. But our new book, Minnesota's Black Community 21st Century, won a national award from a human service agency. And we've got a lot of good things coming. We're working on a documentary. There's a gentleman from public television that's working with us on a documentary about my dad and the books and what's going on here in the Twin Cities community. So we've got a lot of good things going. Sports wise, I'm looking for like I say, the Twins to do some damage. I might even go to Detroit and I might even see if I can catch up with Demetrius. And we can go to a game. Sure, there's no animosity. We just like winning. It's not about that. We're gracious in our victory. So,
oh man, I'm sure Demetrius is listening to every word.
Well, he's ducking me. He's ducking me like in the old wrestling. Vern Gagne ducked the Crusher. He's ducking me. He doesn't know anything to do.
Don, I'm sure you appreciate that old Texas Chainsaw Wrestling match.
Oh yeah.
Iceman Texas, that's my man.
So no sports on your agenda for this weekend, Mr. Scott?
No, I think I'll just kind of be hanging out with my granddaughter, kind of doing the museum and that type of thing, taking a little bit of a break from some of the sporting activities this weekend.
And I always have to remember your 100-year-old uncle?
No, my father-in-law.
Your father-in-law, okay.
My father-in-law, yeah, he's a veteran, 100 years.
Wow.
He raised the flag at the Minnesota Twins game. I'm trying to get the video of that from the Twins. So yeah, he's still going strong. He says, let's just keep it going, So he's the head of the veterans group out here, the Johnny Baker Post. He's the post commander still.
Oh, wow.
And and the veterans really take good care of him. He's doing it. The 100th birthday was a great celebration. I mean, the food. Oh my goodness! And my cousins, they just threw down the old red beans and rice, and oh man, it was just delicious. Everything was just great. And I wrote an article about him that was in the Minneapolis Spokesman newspaper. They contacted me to write an article about his 100th birthday, and I provided them with a picture. So that was a lot of fun for all of us.
Yeah, well, great hearing about the family history and keeping up the tradition, Mr. Scott. Hope to see you again next week.
Yeah, hopefully tell Demetrius he doesn't have to be afraid. Tell Demetrius he's more than welcome. I mean, it's
Bill, your final thoughts for the evening.
Sure. Well, and obviously you opened earlier talking about the senselessness of the racial violence that took place earlier this month in Buffalo. And, this young man with his manifesto and his all too easily obtained weaponry who went hunting, right? And wrote about it and live streamed it. In fact, for those, people who followed him on Twitch and things like that who were watching him. I mean, lots of what went on wasn't new. Lots of what went on that day were very familiar things. The thing that was new was the live streaming of it, right? The fact that he had at least 20 viewers that they know of watching him on his Twitch channel while he gunned people down in the store. That's actually not my final thought, but it's just incredibly disturbing to think about that. On this day in 1909, Jack Johnson, in his first title defense, fought Philadelphia Jack O'Brien to a 6-round no decision in Philadelphia. And Jack Johnson, still to this day, is a figure that is both misunderstood, underappreciated, and fascinating to America. And of course, those who saw the documentary or read the book, Unapologetically Black, or was it Unforgivably Black? Sorry. He was loud and crass and brash at a time when Black athletes were supposed to be meek and humble and mild. He bought expensive things and wasted money like it was water. He publicly romanced white women. He hung out with the elites of the criminal world openly. He did all kinds of things openly in a way that other athletes wouldn't have dared to, black or white, quite frankly. And, I remember seeing when I was quite young, not the greatest, but the, oh my God, James Earl Jones in,
Great White Hope.
Great White Hope. Thank you. Great White Hope. And, obviously it's a great piece of work, but it still doesn't really give you a good sense of what Jack Johnson actually was like. A person that comes from, I think, Galveston, if I remember this correctly, at a time when Galveston, Texas, first of all, had recently been destroyed by a hurricane.
Hey, can I call you right back? I'm doing my show.
Oh, okay.
I'll call you right back.
And I think, if I remember correctly, Don, Galveston was almost literally wiped off the map by this hurricane, if memory serves me correctly, like almost literally ceased to exist.
Yeah, so that hurricane helped put my mom through college.
Oh.
I'll tell you the story about that when you're finished.
Fascinating. Okay, so he's from this part of the country that is apparently semi-regularly destroyed by hurricanes, and obviously at a time when America was deeply segregated. I mean, an apartheid country, right? In the same way that South Africa or any other apartheid country was an apartheid country. He had very little formal education, but was always very cunning and very swift and very smart mentally. And unlike so many black athletes, he didn't sign I mean, he certainly wasted money, but it wasn't due to him signing a bunch of bad contracts, which many of them did. No, he wasted his money the old-fashioned way on wine, women, and song, as opposed to bad contracts with swindlers. But he traveled the world. He lived fast and died young-ish, but he never once played the game in terms of. I mean, he probably took a few dives for money, but he never once played the game in terms of shuffling or averting his eyes or saying "yes, boss" or anything like that. He was always very forthright about who he was and what he wouldn't do. And yes, his morals were definitely flexible, I think is the term one would use. He could definitely be swayed by money, and he needed money because he spent it like water. But in his own way, he really was a true trailblazer and pathfinder. Though very different from a guy like Jack Robinson, who was always concerned about what people thought. He didn't give much thought to what black or white people thought of him. But he certainly lived an unafraid life at a time when black people tended to not be unafraid.
Don,
Yes.
we're waiting.
Okay, so I'll give you my final thought. I just want to explain how my mom got to college through that hurricane back in 1901. So my great-grandparents lived north of Houston in a place called Montgomery County.
Okay.
And they had a lumber mill. And when news came of the hurricane, the people down there said, we need caskets. And so my great-grandfather and my grandfather and his brothers, they made over like, I want to say 800-900 caskets.
Whew.
But when they got shipped to Galveston, most of the bodies have been buried in the mass grave.
Oh, all right. Yeah.
But they still had the contract for the caskets. They still got paid, and I think the city of Galveston distributed the caskets as needed. Kind of a sad way, but the money that he made, he paid for his kids to go to college and their descendants. So yeah, so it's kind of a sick story, but hey, my mom got her master's degree.
Oh, there we go. Silver lining.
From Sam Houston State.
Oh.
In Huntsville, where she met my dad. My dad was a letterman, played football there, and so yeah. So my final thoughts. It's been a kind of a slow week here in San Antonio. We had I was doing some work with our softball team, got beat in the playoffs, so that's why after a long absence, I'm back on the SPORTSKRIB finally, and so I'll be here for a while. Looking forward to football. Someone said there's like X number of days. They started a countdown. I'm really pumped about the Texas and Alabama football game. I got my tickets. I'm ready to go. Someone asked Sarkisian about the kickoff time. He said, I don't give a shit when kickoff is. Just show up. Just be there. We'll be there. So that's my final thoughts. Kind of weak for a final thought, but hey, it is what it is, as they say.
Hey, all right, guys. Well, hey, nice spending another week with you guys.
I want to tell Bill something real quick. Bill, I had a band in the 70s, the Prophets of Peace, and we played at this club, a dinner club. And so it was a club where they had a play, and the play was The Great White Hope. And so I would hang out with the actors, and the guy was tremendous playing Jack Johnson in this play, The Great White Hope. But the guy was Ernie Hudson in the Ghostbusters movie.
Yeah.
And he still lives up here in Burnsville, and we talk about that. He's actually in our book. But we played at this supper club, and every night he did the play of The Great White Hope, and nobody knew who he was then. He was just getting started as an actor. And he still lives here in the Twin Cities. So
all part of American history, y'all. Have a great week, everyone. We'll talk to you next week.
Good night.
All right. Yeah, tell Demetrius, he can give me a call or something. He doesn't have to be a stranger.
All right, Mr. Scott.